Our next speaker is Niklas Green. He's from an organization called Sustory. Sustory is a Finnish-based organization that looks into telling sustainability stories, into teaching organizations and individuals how to adopt sustainable practices. But let me not go on all about it. Let me introduce you all to Niklas Green, a co-founder of Sustory.
Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you very much for having me today. And actually, I could add to us being a Finnish organization. We're Finland-based, working very much in trying to work in all over the world. We're not active in Asia yet. We will move there as soon as possible. And actually recruited our first member from Denmark. So now we are not all based in Finland anymore. So that's great news. Thanks for having me. Yeah. Thanks for having me, and welcome also from my side to everyone. For some reason, my camera is a bit twisted. Actually, I thought about today, and I thought about making a presentation. Then I realized that I won't, because sustainability is not a presentation. And I think a lot of the time when you talk about sustainability, it's something that's presented to you, and it's something that is given as a presentation on what you should do, and what companies should do, and the people should do. And I think every time you listen to one of those, the feeling you get is that we have these grandiose goals that in 2030, 2040, 2050, or better yet, 2100, we need to achieve this and this and this. And we have, as I said, we have these grandiose goals that by 2040, we need to be carbon neutral. We need to use only recyclable materials. We need to do this. We need to do that. And no one is focusing on what we should do today. And I think that's one reason why I didn't even want to make a presentation, because I didn't want to make up something on where we should go. Because I think it's quite clear to everyone that we obviously everybody wants a world that is super sustainable. Everybody wants a world that is carbon neutral, where we only use recyclable products. But I don't think that's really realistic to think about that today. So what I wanted to talk about was really how we see the world at Sustory, at least how I see the world in sustainability at Sustory, and why it's so important that it's everybody's responsibility to think sustainability, and not only let's say big corporations or schools' responsibility, and thinking about marketing. Because I mean, if you look at marketing of sustainability, what we've been told is that the number one issue, I mean, this is basically how it is. The number one issue is the plastic straw. The plastic straw that we have in our drinks, but it's not, because the plastic straw is so marginal that it doesn't basically matter. I actually saw a very interesting documentary a few weeks back where they told that the number one issue is actually the amount of fish we eat. So that's something to consider. But let's talk sustainability. When we started Sustory, it actually goes way back. Sustory started as a project that I was supposed to deliver to Tiina Karme, who is one of the co-founders, and we then ended up actually starting Sustory as an NGO and not as a side project to something else. What we did directly from the beginning was we reached out to different companies and organizations. We reached out to a couple of companies in forestry. We reached out to a company, it's called Lamore, doing oil spill cleanup and water treatment. We reached out to some stores, department stores, and also interviewed a now friend of mine who is with Adelante Americas, Outi Korpinen, who is doing some work in renting bags, which is quite interesting. What we did back then is that we collected different stories on what these people do and how they tackle sustainability. And quite quickly it became clear that there's no such thing as defined sustainability. So if you look, let's start. If you look at something with who is doing cleanup services, the whole business model is obviously sustainable. But if you look at, let's say, a store, it's quite unsustainable. So what this means is that basically they have to pitch in sustainability into their business model. And a lot of the times they add it on afterwards. And if you look at how it is today, a lot of companies see this as a cost and not as an opportunity. So a lot of them just add on the sustainability part. And we actually found that one particular store in Finland, we had almost 100 partners within sustainability, and it was very unclear what they all do. On the other side, we had companies who had 1 or 2 partners who were actually doing a lot. The number one difference was that the companies who are actually doing something and not promoting it so much, they see sustainability as an opportunity. And why sustainability is everybody's responsibility, I mean, is obviously quite clear, because it's our planet, it's our future, it's our children's future as well. But I think a lot of people should realize and should look into sustainability as a huge opportunity. And this is also the case for sustory. So sustainability basically, I mean, it's a broad word, and I think a lot of the time sustainability is being as cool these days as maybe the internet in the early 2000s. You know, you want to be sustainable, and everyone is talking about sustainable business being sustainable, this being sustainable, that. But once you start looking into sustainability, even if you ditch the name, you can quite quickly realize that there's a lot of business opportunities within sustainability, because just by basically reusing something that's there, you can make something out of it. Or if you on your own do not want to reuse something that's out there, you can look out at the other side of it. If you're a business, how can I cut down on using materials? Again, positive effect on what you do. If you're just dreaming about having a business, again, there's so much you can do within sustainability, because you can take something. Because if you're let's say you're a super sustainable company, you can take something that already exists and make something new out of it. I think this is actually one thing we are doing. We are running a competition now together with Outi and very famous fashion brand. They're called Riika Couture, who's doing dresses for very famous people, including The Direction and Britney Spears. As we are running a fashion show in the US, or fashion competition, where the participants have to take something and make a dress out of it, so it becomes a sustainable dress. So really to get to the point of how is this for everybody, and now actually let's talk a bit first about what sustory is doing. So obviously we are very much focused on bringing a voice to sustainability, because we strongly believe that in order to make a difference, you need to know the issue. And as you can see, I have the curtains closed behind me because it's so hot in Finland. For Finland, obviously we like this, but and most Finns like this. The reason, quite obviously, is because it didn't used to be this way. The world is getting warmer, and coming from Finland, I think I've said this many times when I've been speaking somewhere. We don't really see sustainability as an issue. Because where we come from, a lot of the things we are taught already in school as children actually are sustainable, even though we don't name them under something called sustainability. And also, I mean, coming from here, we have a working system for water. We have working system for sanitation. You have a working system for garbage. So basically, we are just taught that you need to sort this stuff, and you take it out to the trash bin, and it magically disappears. So coming from Finland, I think we think a lot of more on high level sustainability. That it's something big and something we need to do. But again, if we go to some other region, I always say that there's so many different kinds of sustainability, and you always need to focus on the most important one first, because otherwise you will be speaking a lot and doing a little, a bit like me today. Let's say go, and this is my opinion, you go to a poor region, working conditions are bad, and sustainability otherwise is bad. And I think then you have to do the trade-off. A lot of the time you have to do the trade-off because you have to focus first on people, how you can be sustainable within people, how can you increase working conditions, how can you increase things like this, before you can focus very much on the environment first. And I think this is something that a lot of people fail to understand. Obviously, the end goal is the same, that you want to have a sustainable environment where everybody is having a good life. But if you focus on too much at once, you won't get anything done. So if you go to a region, you make yourself a map, or wherever you live, you make yourself a map. What would I like this region to be like, or how would I like my life to look like? You start with something. And I mean, if you see that you have huge issues, you have a lot of trash in the streets, you don't have running water, you don't have, working conditions are bad. You start with something. I mean, obviously you want to change everything, but you start with something. You start with yourself. You start with sorting your own trash. You start with not throwing out your own trash from the window. You start with putting it in one place, taking it to a trash bin. You start within your home at looking on how can I save on doing something. Do I always need to have the lights on? Do I always need to have my air conditioner at max? Do I always, how about food? How much food am I throwing away? There's a lot of minor things that everybody can do. And I think once people start realizing that there's actually a monetary benefit to them as well, then people will start focusing on this much more. And once everybody starts focusing on it, then it becomes something bigger, and then you can actually have an impact. A good friend of mine from a company called River Recycle, Anssi Mikko, the founder of it, said that his dream would be to have it so that you would actually have to pay for the environmental impact of something, which means that you go to a supermarket and you buy, let's say you buy a plastic toy that is very hard on the environment. It's €5 on the shelf, and once you get to the cash register, you get a €200 or $200 sustainability fine on top of it, and that way people would maybe start looking at it. I think that's quite a good comparison, quite a good thought of him, because the way it is now, it should be everybody's responsibility, because it's not. Because a lot of people only look at the price and only look at how cheap can I get it, and not on the sustainable side of it. So really, back to what I was saying about sustory. Got off track to talk more about sustainability being everybody's choice. What we want to do is we want to collect stories from different regions, because, as I've said many times, sustainability differs very, very much in different regions. Coming from Finland, it feels kind of, in a sense, it feels kind of distant, because Finland is a very sustainable country. But if I recall, when I lived back a couple of years ago, when I lived in China, it was not. There were so many things that were quite obvious that you could do straight away. So what we want to do is we want to collect stories, not only on what people, what's bad. We want to collect stories on what people are doing. small ventures, large ventures, small things that people are doing within sustainability, that we can collect these stories and tell them. Because we believe very strongly that based on these stories we can have a change. Because if people start seeing that this is the reality, this is everyday life in some regions, then we can have an impact. Then we can actually collaboratively do something in that region, instead of making up these big grandiose goals that by 2040 or 2045 or whatever, 2050, we need to be carbon neutral. Instead, we can just start focusing on the small goals and together think that how can we do whatever it is? How can we help some region, let's say Africa, how can we help an African region in installing a system for garbage collection? How can we help them with, how can we teach on, let's say, on how you make sustainable food, or how you not throw away so much food? How can we do this? How can you teach preserving food, for example? And I mean, it's obviously, if you don't have a system, it's tremendously hard to be sustainable. Thinking about, you're talking about trash collection, thinking about myself, if I wouldn't have any bins, if I would have to carry my trash a very long way, I mean, to be honest, I don't think I would do it. I would probably just throw it out the window, because it's not something you do. It's even though it's your responsibility, but if everybody else is doing it, you just don't do it. So I think by telling these stories and by taking this next step, that, you know what, I'm going to be different than everybody else. I know it's a long way. I'm going to be different than everybody else. I'll start doing it, and little by little, you'll inspire other people to do it as well. And once you start inspiring other people to be sustainable, you can have a difference, and then you can together make an impact. And talking trash collection, I mean, if you are in a region where it doesn't exist, and little by little you all start taking it someplace, and then you agree that every fifth week or every, depending on how many people there are, it's someone's responsibility to take it forward. And by doing this collaboratively, you can actually have an impact just by taking a small step, that this is what I do, and this is my responsibility. Again, if I would, nice to have you back on the screen, Michael. It feels so lonely always. Now you get used to speaking online. You get used to being on these huge meetings with a lot of people, and then when you're speaking on your own, it's like, am I alone here? Being at home all the time. Now, actually, what I wanted to say was that what we need in order to have a difference, have an impact, make a difference, is we need stories. And I always request people to, if you have something you want to say, if you have something you want to highlight, we want to highlight people's stories. We want to bring them up, because we believe that's a way to have an impact and to do something. And I strongly believe that the smallest projects are the most inspiring one, because these are the projects that you can scale, you can have an impact. And usually small projects, they are so easy for other people to implement that they will do it. And I think that's the key message of today, is that start small, and start small by having an impact. And by doing small step by step, then we can take larger steps together. And if we all take our own responsibility, then maybe, just maybe, we can reach the 2050 or 2100 agenda. But I mean, as it is today, that we just speak about the agenda, and whenever we get close, we put a plus on it, then we will never reach it. Thank you very much. And any questions, please?
There aren't any questions in the comment section right now, but then I've dropped the link to Sustory. So if there's anyone who would love to learn more, can go there. And for those who don't know, I don't know if there's an echo. For those who don't know, Sustory really tells wonderful stories. I remember when Tina told one of the stories, told that sustory, basically. I believe it's a common one. It's also on the platform about the little girl who took the starfish and threw back into the water.
Yeah, she likes
And
the story. It's a favorite
yeah,
for Tina.
yes, yes. And it really moved me because I remember when she told this story, she made mention of the fact that someone told the girl, "What are you doing? The water has washed all this starfish onto the shore, and you just throwing one starfish back into the water would not do anything, would not make any change." But then the girl's response was, but it made a change for that starfish. That starfish is fine. That starfish is okay. And that's a difference. And then she took another one and tried and said, that's a difference. And what really moved me there was you don't have to do everything. You just have to do that little thing that makes so much change. That little thing you can do, just do it. Make your own difference. And I guess that's how it's everybody's responsibility to be
Exactly.
sustainable because you
Exactly.
can't force someone, but if everybody can own it and become responsible in relation to how they use materials and the likes, then so much change would happen. And that's really, really amazing and interesting for me. I really love that story. And it also speaks to the power of storytelling, which Sustry is a big part of, which Sustry is big on because stories are not so easily forgotten. I mean, look at how I can remember that story. It has
Right.
lived with me and it has driven so much action in me that I don't need to change other people. I just need to change myself. That's enough. When people see the change in me, more people would want to change their self. And that's just really something amazing. Thanks so much for coming online, Niklas. Do you have anything in the perspective of looking at the African industry right now or the African economy? I know one big issue we have here is the use of these plastic bags. We have water bottles. Everything is mainly plastic right now. It's I don't know. Annoyingly, looks like the only way. We have this what we call nylon bags. We have plastic bottles waste, and it's really really destroying lots of water bodies, the land, many things. What do you? Are there any like innovations or so that can really counteract this? Because I've seen lots of challenges online for people to come and find alternatives. I'm seeing you spoke about collaboration, cross country, and the likes.
Sure. So I think, as I said, first to agree with you, it's everybody's responsibility. And what I tried to say also is that start where you can. I think that's the key message. There's always something you can do, and start with what you can. Talking plastic bottles, I think to everybody, I think there's a lot of opportunities in a sense that if you think hard enough about it, I'm sure you can figure out a business opportunity from it. I've actually seen from the African continent, I've seen some videos of fishing boats being made of
Yeah.
plastic bottles. I've seen some furniture being made of plastic bottles. I think that
Mhm.
they use them for doing roads as well.
Yeah.
Um, what I'm quite sure there's first of all what I the number one thing I would advise to do is to make a collection system. And this is basically not something that needs to be very hard to do. What you basically need to do is you need to have a cage or something where you put the plastic bottles,
Yeah.
and then reach out to a partner. Um, in this sense, I think the partner would be you. That they would reach out to, and we would then help you, because I know there's a lot of companies who use this plastic, uh,
Yeah.
and they have a combustion process where they take the plastic and make it back into oil. Funnily
Yeah.
enough, they sell the oil back to the industry making the plastic, so they have a complete cycle of them
Wow.
then redoing the bottles. So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of opportunity once you start thinking about it. What I would do personally, I would look at the collection process. Uh,
Okay.
if you so if I would live in such a city, I would look at starting a company where I collect the plastic bottles in something. You just put these bins in the city or whatever you can, and you empty them. And then I would reach out to you and maybe to me, to Sustory, and start looking for this partner who can take the plastic bottles. Because believe it or not, there's actually a lot of value in the plastic bottles. So basically what you have waterways that are filled with plastic bottles, but there's also money in the plastic bottles. So you have waterways that are filled with money.
Wasting away.
Yeah, right.
Okay then. Thanks so much for this. Later on this week, I believe tomorrow, there's a company, a game studio called K4 Games. They actually built a game called Clean My Beach. And what that does is you have this, like, the environment is a beach scene, and there are bottles all around. And the idea is you earn points by picking bottles and putting them in a trash can. And I find that really interesting. We'll be meeting with them tomorrow, talking with them to understand. And it's all about, in this case, it's all about also through that repeated process, that gamified process in the game, people can now start building unconsciously the responsibility of, if I see a bottle, let me pick it and dispose it of properly. And that's exciting. So thanks so much for joining us, Niklas. Really, really grateful to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. So please do have a lovely afternoon. For all those out there, if you do check out sustory.fi, I personally am looking forward to seeing what we can do together, because it's really amazing organization. How you use stories, how you use structures, culture, and practices to change the mindset of people. So check out sustory.fi. And if you have any questions, if you have any projects, any ideas, you want to tell a story, feel free to reach out to them. Thank you, Niklas. Do have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye.